if you look at a regulatory system anywhere, they all follow a common course. There will be differences, but finally the objective and the final point is all common. In our case, in fact, the regulation comes in when the government or the system wants to deregulate. Deregulation necessarily follows with a regulatory framework. The same thing here also, when the government conceived that the oil and gas sector should be deregulated way back in late 1990, there was a provision simultaneously also to set up an independent statutory framework to be administered by a board. So this board today, what is called a Petroleum and Natural Gas Regulatory Board, came from that time, but actually it was enacted in 2006. And then in our government language, notified by the government in 2007, became partly effective from 2010. So let me take 1 minute to explain, why do you regulate? I mean, if the market operates effectively, there is no need to regulate. Or if the government is regulating, why should you have an independent statutory regulator, There is a subtle difference between what government can do and the regulator is supposed to do. Also backed by the government is that government has a dual role. Government also is the primary regulator as well as a stakeholder in the same system. So there is an inherent conflict of interest. To get out of this dilemma, the statutory regulatory framework came in, where it was provided that the regulator has to follow an open, transparent framework to administer the provisions of the Act. Whatever the regulator does has to be open. You think something, go to the stakeholders, publicize things and get their comments and finalize. So in our case, the same system has been followed. But where does the problem lies? I can summarize in just one word. As you must have seen in previous deliberations also, this sector, despite having established the basic systematic framework, is still in a transition. And globally, India is no different. When I read other countries also, I find they are also still going through this regulatory motion. So therefore, when you look at Indian system, I would request also to look into the US system, UK system, German, the entire OECD, including Southeast Asia, which I would say still behind India in terms of setting of the regulatory framework. Now, in our case, we have basically 4 pillars of regulation. One is authorize. Why should you authorize somebody? Because the regulation comes in when there is a non-competitive sector. I'm not putting the word monopoly, but non-competitive is a better word because it covers many other things. Monopoly has got so many dimensions also. So if there is a non-competitive, it has to be made competitive. So this has to be done through authorization process. If there is a partly monopoly, partly competitive, what you call quasi-monopoly, what you call monopolistic competition, then probably there is no need to authorize. Authorize is like entry barrier, You don't enter the market without being permitted to work. Then there is a thing called registration. You work, but get registered with the regulator so that regulator keeps a watch on you. Third is competition, but competence also needs to be improved, Nothing is perfect. So therefore, you have to monitor certain aspects of competition, like prices, like customer relations. We call it market service obligations, retail service obligations. These are all given in the Act. And then finally, safety. So of these four broad aspects of regulation, authorization, registration, monitoring, and safety, currently the board, what is called PNGRB, Petroleum and Natural Gas Regulatory Board, is empowered to work on authorization and safety. And the registration and monitoring is still not being done because there is a provision that the products have to be notified by the government, thereafter the empowerment follows. So in case of authorization, it's basically natural gas and CGD, city gas distribution, or what is called as local gas distribution networks. Globally, these two, the natural gas pipeline as well as the city gas distribution, are considered natural monopolies globally. There is absolutely no difference of opinion. So therefore, they have to be regulated. But you can't regulate everything. If you have to pick up two most important aspects of regulating a monopoly is tariff, what price it will charge for a network, and second, access. Because both monopoly can deny. Of course, the tariff it will not deny, it will have a rent, it will raise the tariff abnormally, and the second part is it will not allow entry into its system. If the regulator can rationalize the tariff and can create a system where access is available to all, perhaps the job of the regulator is well done. In our case, we have made all those regulations, but then still there are a lot of challenges. As I said, the sector is still going through transition. And regulation, we should not look in isolation. Regulation is nothing. It has evolved from the market system itself. So therefore, the policy, the industrial setup, the profiles, natural gas market and industry profiles, within that the regulatory system has to evolve. So in regulatory setup also, things are moving, things have to be changed, things have to be reformed. In all aspects, in authorization also, what Dr. Balian was hinting as a stakeholder from outside. So there are problems in tariff setting. There are divergence because if when I was reading through all the country profiles, there are very beautiful lines, very you can say like sermons. They say, whatever be the approach to regulation, whatever be the approach to tariff regulation, you can follow any methodology, any kind of approach, the tariff must relate to cost. It's a very common sense approach, I mean, the returns can vary, you can say 6, 10, 20%, but it has to relate to the cost. This is a basic premise. So one has to follow it. Second, what is more important, sometimes we feel probably tariff setting is very good. Once you fit the tariff, things are done. No. The most important aspect of regulating monopoly and bringing it to kind of a competitive framework is to allow what we call third-party access, TPA. And it's very interesting to note, when you go through almost all leading profiles like OECD, there's the laboratory of gas regulatory firms, all your Europe, US and Japan, Australia. You'll find even today, they're still struggling with TPA. Third-party access is such a difficult thing. They are still reforming, they're still trying to evolve, still fine-tuning. Even more interesting is, having opened up the market, their prices, oil prices particularly, move almost 99.9% of international prices. It's so much correlated. Still, today's debate is whether that price is excessive, whether the market price itself is excessive. There is a debate going on. How do you see that? Is it the real fair price, or there is some excess element? So that kind of finer aspects of regulation are being explored outside. And when you compare with India, we are still at the base level. We are still trying to set up our basics correct. Then if I come to the profiles, how much we have developed, nothing much really to report in the sense that before the board came up, natural gas pipeline was almost 15,000 kilometers, out of which one company was almost, like monopoly having 11 to 12,000 kilometers of pipeline, which is a common phenomena globally. If you read any country profile, you'll find that there will be a government company holding the forte and developing the pipelines even now. After that, a lot of approvals have been given, almost 8 to 9,000 kilometers of pipeline. But somehow the problems are at the grassroots as well as at the pricing and other fronts, not much has been achieved, practically built. So there is a huge challenge. One is, of course, all these gas pipelines were conceived when there was a brighter prospect of domestic gas availability, which has now really sunk. Therefore, all those pipelines have also been in the limbo. When you come to city gas, also same problems. About 28, 29 lakh PNG customers were linked before the board came, and after that, although the number has gone up, there are about 33 companies which operated before the board came, and another 33 companies have been authorized to set up city gas. But so far the PNG is kind of an index, one can know whether the city gas has really succeeded. It's only 1.2 lakhs. And if you look at the profile of the growth of CGD, it's one state, Gujarat, 49%. Then you go to Maharashtra, 25%, and New Delhi, 15%, finished. Your entire city gas profile is over with these three locations. So these are the problems, both government as well as the board, including the entities, they're deliberating. I'm hopeful this low price scenario with LNG coming in could provide some bright spots to move ahead and solve some of these regulatory problems. Thank you.